Hello, everybody. What's going on? What's happening? It's your girl Tiffany right here, live in effect. Make sure you subscribe to their YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and check out the contents and all that great stuff. So today, I'll be dealing with two topics about two phenomenal women that were members of the Black Panther Party. One is Sophia Bakari and Erica Huggins. All right. So these two women were members of the Black Panther Party. Now, Sophia Bakari was also a member of the Black Liberation Army as well. So I was just sitting back listening to her lecture, and she was going into details about how it was for her as a Black Panther and the Black being part of the Black Liberation Army. So I'm going to go ahead and start with her biography first. So let's look at it right here. Sophia Bakari. So she was born as Bernice Jones, and she passed away on August 24th of 2003. She was an American political prisoner and member of the Black Panther Party. She was also the co-founder of the Free Mumia Abu Jamal Coalition, the Jericho movement for U.S. political prisoners and prisoners of war, and was the vice president of the Republican of New Africa. And I did a video on that a while back. So now she was born in the Bronx in 1950, one of 10 children in devotedly Christian middle-class family. She planned on becoming a doctor and attended New York City Community College as a pre-med student, pledging at the college only integrated sorority. Bakari's political awakening did not happen until college. On a sorority trip, she encountered a Black Panther member selling newspaper who asked if she and her friends wanted to volunteer with the Free Breakfast for Children program. Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army. Along with some of her sorority sister, Bukhari began volunteering with the Free Breakfast program. She discovered that the police were spreading rumors that the Panthers were feeding the children poisoning food. Bukhari noted they didn't have a breakfast program in the schools themselves. They were not making an effort to feed the children, but they didn't want us to feed the children. In 1969, she witnessed an officer harassing a Panther who was selling papers in Times Square. When she told the officer the Panther had a right to disseminate political literature, she was arrested. According to her, those incidents led to her officially joining the Black Panther Party. She worked out of the party's Harlem office, becoming in charge of information and communication for the East Coast Panthers. Bukhari was critical of the party's treatment of female Panthers. In 1969, she gave birth to a daughter, Wanda Jones, whose father, Robert Webb, was killed during the party split. In 1971, she converted to Islam. After being subpoenaed to testify about the Black Liberation Army in 1974, she went underground with the Black Liberation Army to avoid testifying. Arrested and incarceration. So on January 25th, 1975, Bukhari was captured after a shooting in Norfolk, Virginia, that left a fellow Black Liberation Army member dead and another shot in the face. Even though she had a license to open carry in public, she was charged with illegal possession of a weapon, felony murder, and attempted robbery. At her rearrangement, her own lawyer threatened to have her bound and gagged. The jury selection, trial, and sentencing all happened in one day, and she was not allowed in court during her trial. She was sentenced to 40 years. Bukhari was sent to Virginia Correctional Center for Women. She was considered the most dangerous inmate there. She needed surgery but was denied treatment by prison personnel. On New Year's Eve of 1976, Bukhari attempted to escape after 1 month of frequently hemorrhaging, if I'm saying it right, for which she was not allowed to see a doctor. She was captured 2 months later and returned to Virginia. While imprisoned, Bukhari and fellow inmates founded a program called Mothers Inside Loving Kids to prevent the separation of children from incarcerated I'm sorry about that, y'all. The connection done went out. All right, so I'm back. Now, later in life, in 1984, Bukhari married an arcanist, Ashanti Alston. She worked as a social worker at the Legal Aid Society. Bukhari continued to be politically active and was paroled. In 1992, she helped form the New York chapter of the Free Mumia Abu Jamal Coalition. In 1998, she helped coordinate the Jericho March and rally for U.S. political prisoners and prisoners of war in Washington, D.C. Jericho became, as she described it, a movement with a defined goal of getting recognition that political prisoners exist inside the prisons of the United States, despite the government's denial. Bukhari was also involved in the Malcolm X grassroots movement. She co-hosted the radio show Where We Live with Sally O'Brien on WBAI, focusing on prison-related issues. Bukhari was the vice president of the Republic of New Africa and provisional government, working to form a black nation composed of South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, states built on the backs of enslaved Africans. On August 24th of 2003, Bukhari died of heart failure at North Shore University Hospital in Queens, New York. After her death, Abu Jamal said from prison that she was a true revolutionary, patient, consistent, disciplined, and determined, who, like Che Guevara, was motivated by a great feeling of love. Her papers were published posthumously after her daughter, Wanda Jones, asked Laura Whitehorn to help her collect, edit, and publish them. Her papers became the war before the true life story of Okay, I don't know if you guys heard me reading the rest of that. My connection is going out. But yeah, you guys can come on here and check it out for yourselves if you want to look up more information about it. Also, here's the online source here, which is called Coming of Age, a Black Revolutionary. So this was written in 2003, all right? And it was published through the Social Justice / Global Options, War, Dissent, and Justice, a Dialogue, written by Sophia Bakari. So let's start right here. The maturation process is full of obstacles and entanglements for anyone. But for a Black woman in America, it has all the markings of the towards maze. I had to say that even the maturation process of the average Black woman, it didn't happen to me. But the day-to-day struggle for survival and growth reaps the same reward in the end in 10,000 different ways. The trick is to learn from each defeat and become stronger and more determined to think and begin to develop the necessary strategies to ensure the annihilation of the beast. And she also wrote, I am one of a family of 10 children. My parents were strict and religious, but proud and independent. One of the strongest influence of my childhood was my mother constantly telling us to hold our heads up and be proud because we were just as good or better than anyone else, and to stand up and fight for what you believe to be right. There was a lot of competition in my family. You had to be with 10 children growing up, each trying to live up to other or be better. We were determined not to be caught up in the rut of the ghetto. We were going to get out, so each of us worked on our separate goals. 10 individuals, one family in our separate world. We believe that with the right education, make it. So that is the route we took searching for the American dream. I was going to be a doctor in my second year of college. I pledged a sorority. It was here that the rose-colored glasses were cracked and rays of reality were allowed to filter. The sorority had decided to help disadvantaged children as one of our projects for the year, and we were trying to decide what country to work with when one of the sisters suggested that we work in the ghettos of New York. Personally, I have never even thought of people in the United States being disadvantaged, but only too lazy to work and make it. I was in for one of the biggest rude awakenings of my life. A few of us were sent to Harlem to investigate the situation. We talked to people on the streets and welfare centers from door to door and watched them work and play, louder on the corners and in the bars. What we came away with was a story of humiliation, degradation, deprivation, and waste that started in infancy and lasted until death, in too many cases at an early age. Even at this point, I did not see this affecting me personally, but only as a sorority project. I was sort of a tourist who takes pity on the less fortunate. And so she also mentioned the sorority decided to do what we could to help the children. The Black Panther Party was already running a free breakfast program to feed the children. I had a daughter of my own at this point and decided that I would put my energies into this. All right, so this is Miss Bukhari or Sister Bukhari giving her accounts as how she got started into the Black Revolutionary Party and what really influenced her. So she started off being in the sorority while she was in college, and they was doing community works in the inner city. So she came across the Black Panthers and she met up with them, and she liked what they were doing and she saw what their goals were. So she decided it was the best thing for her, and that's where she wanted to be. It fit where her narrative was at. So you guys can check it out, Social Justice. And it's at www.jstor.org. www.jstor.org. And that's where you can find the information. All right. All right. So let's see. What else do I have for you guys? So I have another source for you all. All right. So this website here is archive.org. I always use this website, and I recommend you guys do the same, especially if you want to research and find out more information. It's called The War Before: The True Life Story of Becoming a Black Panther, Keeping the Faith in Prison, and Fighting for Those Left Behind. All right, so let's look under Islamic Revolution. Or you know what? Let's look at chapter 6 on the question of sexism within the Black Panther Party. And let's look at the revolution in Islam. 52. the hell? All right, so right here on chapter 6, on the question of sexism, and I'm gonna zoom it up. On the question of sexism within the Black Panther Party. Sophia's original introductory paragraph is included here. This essay was published in unedited form in the fall and winter of 1993 issues of the Black Panther Party. Yeah, the Black Panther Black Community News Service. It also been posted on various websites and is quoted in several books about the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party had a reputation for sexist politics and mistreatment of women members. Certainly, the media encouraged that view. The tendency of white observers to pounce on an example of sexism in Black groups and culture also created the atmosphere in which Sophia was moved to write the essay to put such criticism in context and to point out that sexism is no more than endemic in oppressed communities than in privileged ones. All right. So let's get started. So this piece was initially written as a response to the May 5th, 1993 New York Times op-ed page exchange between former Black Panther member Elaine Brown and Alice Walker, author of The Color Purple. This exchange was the culmination of a running discussion about former Black Party member David Hiller's book, This Side of Glory. Walker had criticized the party's male leadership as sexist, and what was hyped to be an attack on sexism within the party. Walker seemed to spend more time attacking what she presumed to be the sexuality of the male leadership. She made many allusions to homoeroticism. She had a clear problem with using the term sexuality and sexism interchangeably. Exchanges like this make it glaringly obvious that it's necessary to put the issues of sexism in the Black Panther Party in its correct perspective. While Alice confuses sexuality and sexism, I will attempt to address the issue of sexism within the Black Panther Party. The era everyone Black Panther Party supporters and detractors alike seem to make is to look at the party in a vacuum, separating it from its time and roots. The party came out of the Black community and experiences. In order to understand the issue of sexism in the party, it is necessary to review the historical experiences of Black people in this country, as well as the climate in which the party came into being. This is not to say that there was nothing wrong with the way Black women were treated in the party, but we should not simply decry the role of women in the party. Instead, we should analyze the development of the situation and make the necessary moves to correct it. What is the Black experience in this country. We were all brought over the same condition, packed like sardines in the bowls of slave ships. We were herd like cattle to the slave auctions and sold to the highest bidder to be used as work horses, studs, breeders, household help. We were defined by our capacities as breeders, studs, and slave laborers. Women were further characterized by how pleasing they were to the eyes of the slave masters. The destruction of our culture, which started with the stealing of our language, religion, and children, was completed when we began to measure our own worth by how many women the Black men could pleasure at a time and how many children we could have. So, in other words, Black women was nothing more than a breeding farm for the slave master. That's all it was, a breeding farm, basically. So the black woman worked right alongside the black man in the field, and she worked in the master's house. The black man could not defend or protect his family. In most cases, the black woman was the one who defended and protected the family from the slave master war by any means necessary. Since black men had been stripped of their manhood in every way but the ability to pleasure women and make babies, the sexual act soon became the standard by which the black man measured his manhood. Mm. Having been deprived of our culture, we begin to take on the persona of our slave masters, filling the void of our lost culture with the slave culture that was foisted upon us. This is the root of the sexism that is plaguing our community today. Unlike the sexism characteristics of the white community, the sexism of the black community has its basis in racism and self-hate. The division in black community between the black male and black female did not just come about on its own. It was carefully thought out and cultivated. After the end of chattel slavery, black men, for the most part, couldn't get jobs. The black woman had to be breadwinner as well as homemaker. This, in conjunction with the already festering sore of having to stand by and watch while the woman was raped, made to bear master's children, and then made to wet nurse the children of the white woman, was too much for the black man to handle psychologically. This resulted in the black man casting the blame for his situation at the feet of the black woman. As time went on, the love, hate, anger triangle began to manifest itself in the sexism present today in the black community. Which brings us to the 1996 and the founding of the Black Panther Party. Nothing had changed in terms of the quality of life in the black community. Nothing had changed in terms of racism in this country. We were still slaves in every way, except we were no longer bound and shackled. We still didn't have a culture. Our Africanism and sense of identity were gone and had been replaced by Western civilization. We were busy trying to be like the rest of the people in America. We had taken on the persona of sexist America, but with a black hue. It was into this context that the Black Panther Party was born, declaring that we were revolutionary and a revolutionary had no gender. That's interesting. Bobby Seale and Huey Newton envisioned the Black Panther Party for self-defense as just that, a community-based organization that sought to defend the community against police brutality and to set an example of revolutionary activism. The membership of the party was recruited from the ghettos of the inner cities. The party itself was founded in Oakland, California in the spring of 1966 by two black men who came straight out of the ghetto and met on the campus of Merritt College. The party was founded as a response to the rampant episodes of police brutality committed by the notorious Oakland Police Department against the black community. All right, so I'm not going to read any further, but this is her giving her account on the sexism that was happening in the Black Panther Party. So basically, she was saying that, yes, it is true that there was sexism taking place. However, it wasn't just something that happened out of the thin air. It has its history and its origin that has been perpetuated and became a pathology in our community. So I like how she broke it down, and pretty much I agree with her on this. And it says, in its brief 7-year history, women had been involved on every level in the party. There were women like Audrea Jones, who founded the Boston chapter of the Black Panther Party. Women like Brenda Hyson, who was the OD officer of the day in the Brooklyn office of the party. There were women like Peaches, who fought side by side with Geronimo Pratt in the Southern California chapter of the party, and Kathleen Cleaver, who was the Central Committee. There was Sister Rivera, who was one of the motivators behind the office in Mount Vernon, New York. And on the other hand, there were problems men who brought their sexist attitudes into the organization. Some of the men refused to take direction from women. We had a framework established to deal with that, but many times the framework was not used because of liberalism, cowardice, and fear. All right, so let's go on to the next chapter where she talk about Islam and revolution. All right, so she said Islam and revolution is not a contradiction. Uh-oh. The notes of this chapter are Sophia original notes. In some places, updated information has been added. This essay is undated. It was probably written in the late 1980s. So she said, I became a Muslim, one who submit to the will of Allah, while in the Black Panther Party, as a result of defending the rights of the members of the New York Three. As someone who had been reared in the Christian church in a family full of ministers and deacons, I knew the Bible well and had participated in the choir, usher board, and Sunday school in church. I also been a privy to a lot of things being done by people who were supposed to be saved and going to heaven that made me doubt the existence of God. I had decided that there could not be a God if these people were going to heaven and others weren't. It was Noon Qayyam who inadvertently made me see things differently. When they were captured and returned to New York, the New York Three were housed in the tombs. People within and close to the Black Panther Party were criticizing and questioning how Noon and Jalil could be Muslims and revolutionary, questioning their commitment to the struggles. I looked upon Noon as a member, a mentor. As a matter of fact, I called him my teacher. So instead of joining in the criticism of him, I defended his right of self-determination. I reminded those who objected to his being Muslim that we were fighting for the right to freedom and self-determination. I said, how can we talk about self-determination if we would deny someone their freedom to determine whether or not they want to believe in the existence of God? The debate became hotter and hotter, and to shore up my position, I decided to study the religion for myself. So she said, Noon turned me on to a book by Muhammad Khatib called Islam, the Misunderstood Religion. The book answered a lot of questions about religion. It especially answered my question, how there could be a God while people who said they worship him were doing the things. We're doing the things they were doing, but it was reading the Quran for myself that made me decide that I wanted to seriously study the Islamic way of life. As I studied, I learned that Allah makes Muslim, man does not, which to me meant that simply declaring there's none worthy of worship but Allah does not make you Muslim. It is the intentions of your heart and your determination to struggle in the way of Allah that makes you Muslim. I read Surah 2 Ayat 190 and 93, where Muslims are admonished to fight in the cause of God those who fight you, and fight them on until there is no more tumult or oppression. For tumult or an oppression is worse than slaughter. So in 1971, in Sakor Masjid in Green Haven Correctional Facility at Stormville, New York, I declared Shahada and determined that I would strive to stay and struggle in the straight way. All right, so this is the book, which is compiled of her essays. That is all blended in together. So it's called The War Before. The true life story of becoming a Black Panther, keeping up faith in prison, and fighting for those behind. All right. So with that being said, that was a phenomenal sister. She very vocal and powerful. And we got to be honest. I like the fact that she broke down the sexism within the Black community and how the origin had came about. So it's not something that just happened out the blue where, oh, one day I'm going to all of a sudden just be discriminated towards this gender because just because of it. No, it's something that has been ingrained into people. All right. So because of our history, we are looking at each other differently. And as you can see, there is still an ongoing war between Black men and women. And most Black men, I'm going to keep it real, still see Black women as a bunch of bitches and hoes. So with that being said, this is going to be like a pathology that's going to be passed on from generation to generation. And it's not going to ever end. But those who have a better knowledge of self and have a better understanding of themselves, they can see beyond the picture. They can see the psychology. But there are those who don't really see the psychology. They're just very antagonists. So it's a lot of antagonism that's happening amongst us, and it's hard for us to see one another in a positive light. But she was right about these organizations. I mean, she's not the only one. Elaine Brown said the same thing. There was sexism, but people don't want to talk about that. People just want to focus on the good part. But you can't focus on the good part without focusing on the history in itself. You got to get down to the nitty gritty, into details, even if you don't like it, even if it's not very pleasing to you. You got to talk about it. It's like that with any organization, whether it be religious, political, social, you're going to find some form of discrimination. All right, so now let's go to the next Black Panther. Her name is Erica Huggins. So who is Erica Huggins and what did she do? What part did she play? What role or what position she had as a Black Panther? Let's find out. I hope you guys can see my screen. Cool. Great. All right, so right here, this is Miss Erica Huggins, and she's still around to this day. All right, so let's look at the bio. So Erica Huggins, who was born Jenkins on January 5th of 1948, is an American activist and educator. She is a former leading member of the Black Panther Party. All right. So check this out. So she was born in Washington, D.C., and was the middle child of three. After graduating high school in 1966, Huggins attended Shawnee State College. She began her college years at Lincoln University, where she met her husband, Vietnam veteran John Huggins. She holds a master's degree in sociology, and that's great. In 1972, she moved to California and became an elected member of the Berkeley Community Development Council. She was the director of the Black Panther Party's Oakland Community School from 1973 to 1981. Huggins is a professor of sociology at Laney College in Oakland and at Berkeley City College. In addition, she has lectured at Stanford, Cornell, and UCLA. All right. So after joining the party in 1968, Erica Huggins became a leader in the Los Angeles chapter and later led the Black Panther Party chapter in New Haven, All right, let me go back to where I was at. There we go. All right, so now going back to what I was reading. So her husband was killed on the UCLA campus that took place because of a feud between the Black Panthers and the Black Nationalist Group, US organization, which was led by Miranda Karanga. Um, and it was due to the COINTELPRO bringing those to infiltrate and try to discredit and try to get things started pretty much. Anyhow, it says Erica Huggins attended the burial of her husband in his birthplace of New Haven. So now we're going to look at the New Haven Black Panther trials in a minute. But let's go on down to where it says the personal life. Erica Huggins married John Huggins, a former leader of the Los Angeles chapter of the Black Panther Party in 1967. Erica gave birth to their daughter, Mai Huggins, at the age of 20. Within the 3 months of their daughter's birth, Erica was a widow when John Huggins was killed on the UCLA campus in the January of 1969. Huggins has 2 sons, including one with James Mott, lead singer of the Lumpin, the Black Panthers singing group. All right, so here's the reference at the bottom of the page. Now we're going to look into the New Haven Black Panthers trial. All right, so as you can see, that's a little sketch of how the courtroom was with the members of the Black Panther Party. You see the juries. All right, and you see the members. Okay, so let's go ahead. So the New Haven Black Panther trials. In 1970, there was a series of criminal persecution in New Haven, Connecticut against various members of the Black Panther Party. The charges ranging from the criminal conspiracy to felony murder. All indictments stem from the murder of 19-year-old Alice Rackley in the early hours of May 21st of 1969. The trials became a rally point for the American left and marked a decline in public support even among the Black community for the Black Panther Party. So what was the crime? And on May of 1969, members of the Black Panther Party kidnapped fellow Panther Alice Rackley, who had fallen under suspicions of informing for the FBI. He was held captive at the New Haven Panther headquarters on Orchard Street, where he was tortured and interrogated for 2 days until he confessed. His interrogation was tape recorded by the Panthers. During that time, National Party Chairman Bobby Seale visited New Haven and spoke on the campus of Yale University for the Yale Black Ensemble Theater Company. After his speech, Seale briefly stopped by the headquarters where Rackley was being held captive, though it was never proven that he went inside or knew about Rackley's treatment. All right, so early this day, 3 Panthers, Warren Kimbrough, Lonnie Malusius, and the National Panther Field Marshal George Sam Jr. drove Rackley to the nearby town of Middlefield, Connecticut. Kimbrough shot Rackley once in the head, and Malusius shot him once in the chest. They dumped his corpse in the Conjinchon River, where it was discovered the next day. Police raided the Panther headquarters, eventually arresting the 9 New Haven area Black Panthers, in addition to 2 juveniles. Malusius and Sams were captured later. So Sam and Kimbrough confessed to the murder and agreed to testify against Malusius in exchange for a reduction in sentence. So basically, they decided to be a snitch. Sam also implicated Seale in the killing, telling his interrogators that while visiting the Panther headquarters on the night of his speech, Seale had directly ordered him to murder Rackley, and all 9 defendants were indicted on charges related to the case. In the heated political rhetoric of the day, these defendants were referred to as the New Haven 9, a deliberate allusion to other calls celebrate defendants like the Chicago Sevens. So it goes on to talk about the reaction. The first trial that was Alani Malusius, the only person who physically took part in the killing, who refused guilty. In fact, Malusius had confessed to shooting Rackley, but since some of the charges brought against him made him eligible for death penalty, not guilty plea was the only logical trial strategy. Mm. All right, so let's go down to where it says the trial of Seals and Huggins. I'm gonna skip it. So, in the trial of Seals and Huggins, in October of 1970, Bobby Seale went on trial alongside Erica Huggins, founder of the New Haven chapter. This trial was an even larger undertaking involving a full 4-month selection. Seale's attorney emphasized that it was only Sam's testimony that tied Seale to Rackley's murder. Huggins' voice was heard on a tape recording of the victim's interrogation played for the jury. Her lawyer argued that Huggins had been acting under duress. The jury was unable to reach a verdict, deadlocked 11-1 for Seals' acquittal and 10-2 for Huggins' acquittal. On May 25th, 1971, Judge Harold Mobley stunned courtroom spectator by dismissing the charges against Huggins and Seals, saying, "I find it impossible to believe that an unbiased jury could be selected without superhuman efforts which this court, the state, and these defendants should not be called upon either to make or to endure." Erica Huggins and Bobby Seale would have to stand trial for their lives because they had been unyielding in their efforts to forge liberating actions for Black people. And there were innumerable other instances of frame-ups and similar political reprisal. And this was written by Angela Davis. So both the Panthers and the FBI suffered damage to their reputation after the public exposure of their most unsavory activities. In 1971, a group of left-wing radicals calling themselves the Citizen Commission to investigate the FBI burglarized an FBI field office in Media, Pennsylvania, which was found to be spying on Swarthmore College students and faculty. Among the materials stolen in this break-in were documents revealing the nature of the COINTELPRO program. Within a year, director declared that the centralized COINTELPRO was over. For the Panthers, the Seale trial may have been the height of their national exposure and their popularity among the border left-wing movement. A string of violent confrontation with law enforcement, along with the trials and conviction of National Party leaders that followed, left the movement spent and adrift. In mid-1970, it was largely inactive. All right, so if you want to find out more information, go on Wiki One and arrest in the United States. And then here's the reference at the bottom of the page. Also, I found something that was very interesting. It's like the Black Panthers newspaper right here. So if you guys want to check this little newspaper out, see what it says. It says the Black Panther, Black Community News Service, Black Panther Party, Youth Makes the Revolution. Liberation Schools Revolutionize the Youth. All right, so this is their newspaper that was around at that time period. Now it was 25 cents. All right. So that's all the information that I have on Erica Huggins and Sayifa or Sophia Bakari. What I want to leave out in conclusion is that you have to remember during this time when the Black Panthers came about, most of them were young. They were in their 20s and they were college students. Okay, so when you're young, you're going to become more rebellious and you're going to become more angry at the system. But they were very more. They had their minds in the right direction. They knew what to study on political information. They was big on political education, social education, and they have done some great things for the community. But what became their downfall was the fact that they were not very strategic enough. See, they were beat at their own game. You know, like they were smart. They knew about the system, but they were not smart enough to get away from the system. So it got to the point where the members just decided to just disband the Black Panther Party altogether. Some of them became professors. Some of them became Republicans. And then there are those who converted into Islam and still continue on with the activism. And then after the Black Panther came about, the Black Liberation Army. And then the Black Liberation Army didn't last very long. But one thing I could say is a lot of those members in the Black Liberation Army, they put their life on the line. When I say they put their lives on the line, they put their lives on the line. Even those in the Black Panther Party did. You got members to this day that's still incarcerated. They are serving life in prison because they refuse to be a snitch. They're refusing to just tap out. They decided that they were going to take that risk and they were going to serve their punishment. And, you know, and to this day, I'm still amazed at how they were able to get Assata Shakur out of prison. I'm still amazed by that. Like, I'm still. And then what's interesting, she was locked up in the men's prison too. So they was able to break her out of prison and send her off in Cuba. And to this day, she's still in Cuba. And nobody can come around her and try to deport her back to the United States. Now, this was in the 80s. And she's still in Cuba to this day. And Cuba has her under like some type of protective service to where the United States government cannot even get close to her. Well, shout out to Fidel Castro because he made sure that she was recovered. He made sure that she had a safe place to be. He made sure she was good. So Fidel Castro did his job. I mean, I ain't never seen no other organization as of today that can do what the Black Liberation Army have done or what the Black Panther has done. I haven't seen it. I have yet came across any organization like that. I mean, I'm political. These people were very political. They were more like socialists and communists. They didn't identify with being Republican or Democratic. But one of these days, I'm going to study more into the Communist Party and socialism and how it relates to Black people, why Black people decided that they want to get involved in these political organizations or political, these political parties. Rather, why did Black people feel that socialism and communism was the best answer to Black people's problem in America? So one day we're going to get on a topic about that. I got to study more into that. So, but anyways, you guys take it easy. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, check out the video contents, and also share the videos. Until next time, may peace be upon all of you. Take it easy. And hopefully one day I can get a guest on here to talk more about socialism and communism and the Black community. So that would be a great thing. But until then, just be on the lookout. All right. Thank you. Deuces. All right then. Peace.